Hello everyone, so today we're going to make the stripy scarf that you will have seen in the video at the beginning. This is a great project to use up scrap yarn because you can pretty much use anything you want, but what I will say is that for this particular pattern, despite the fact that we're using this large gauge loom, you will need to use DK weight yarn. And the reason for that is that this stitch pattern gives a very dense fabric, and if you use anything that's too bulky, you end up with a very stiff, inflexible scarf, which of course is no good. You want this thing to be quite drapey. So I'm using this black and this sort of multicoloured, slightly sparkly yarn. I'm not sure if it picks up on the camera, but that's what I have. I thought it would give quite a dramatic effect. And they're going to have vertical stripes, and the way that we're going to do this is that we're going to work with both balls of yarn at the same time, which can be a little bit tricky because you have to make sure they don't get all tangled up, but it's not too bad once you get the hang of it. So we're going to start off with a crochet cast on. So I'm just using a 4mm hook here, and when I did this a swatch with this, 10 pegs gave approximately 3.5 to 4 inches, so you can use that to work out how wide you want your scarf to be. I'm going to actually use 20 pegs to make mine, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. So when you're doing crochet cast on, you start at the last peg, put your crochet hook between the pegs, wrap your working yarn round to the front here, and then grab that and pull it back through the loop that's on your hook. There we go. Okay, now give yourself a little bit of slack here. I know it's a bit difficult to see with this black yarn, but give it a little bit of slack, but not too much. Now when you go back through to the next peg, you need to twist your crochet hook like that to grab the yarn, and then twist it back again to go around the next peg. So do you see, you're sort of making a twisting motion as you go between each peg. So I'm going to do that all the way around, and then I'll get back to you when I'm at the last peg. Okay, I'm at my last peg, which is actually my first peg, but okay. And what you do is you take this loop that's on your hook and you just pop that over the first peg there, and you're now ready to start knitting. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to start with the black that we've already got on here. Okay, you're going to wrap this first peg, skip this first one for the moment, wrap this peg here, lay your working yarn across the front of the next peg, just checking you can actually see, lay the working yarn across the front of the next peg, wrap the next one, lay it across the front of the next one, wrap the next one, and so on, all the way to the end. Okay, when you get to the last one, just wrap that peg, knit that, and that secures that off. Alright, now what you're going to do is you're going to go along the row and you're going to knit off every other peg. The ones that you've actually completely wrapped, these are the ones that you're going to knit off. So you've knitted this one, then you're going to go to this one that you've fully wrapped, skip the ones where you've just laid the yarn across the front, and knit off all of the pegs that you actually fully wrapped. Like so, all the way to the end. Basically every other peg, but make sure you're knitting the ones that are fully wrapped, not the ones that just have the yarn lying across the front. And that's the last one. Okay, now we're ready to introduce our second colour. So you're going to grab your other colour, whatever you're using. Make sure that your original yarn is outside the loom, out the way. You want to make a slip knot as usual. Okay. And you're going to put that slip knot onto the first peg that has the 2 wraps. You're going to put that there and adjust it. And then you're going to wrap your yarn in exactly the same way. You're going to lay it across the front of the next one, wrap the next one, across the front of the next one, wrap the next one, and so on, all the way back to peg 1. And when you get to the last peg here, just wrap that, hold it for a second, and knit it off, and that secures that. Okay, and again, make sure that you take your yarn that you've just been using and kind of make sure it's outside the loom here. This is how you avoid them getting tangled up quite so badly. Now you're going to go back across the loom and you're going to knit off all of the pegs that have these 2 extra loops, and you're going to knit them off as one. So just go back along the loom, knit off all of these, like so, and we're back here. So now at this point you should have your original colour coming out from the last peg here, which in my case is peg 20, and you should have your introduced colour up here by peg 1. But what we actually want is to have them both now at the same side. Now, if you look at your loom, you can see what colour is on top. You can see that in my case it's this sort of pinky red colour at the moment. So whatever colour is on top, you need to knit the other colour. That's how you can work out, you know, if you have to leave your knitting alone for any amount of time, you can come back and pick it up and say, okay, well the last one I did was this, so I need to do this. So we're going to take our black yarn again. Okay. And we're going to do exactly the same thing. We're going to lay this across the top of here, wrap the next peg. Across here, wrap the next peg. And so on. You're basically wrapping all of the pegs that already have 2 loops on, and you're laying the working yarn across the front of the pegs that only has 1 loop on, all the way across. And then when you get to that last peg, when you get to the last peg here, you're just going to knit that off. And you can just tug on this slightly just to tighten it up. Okay, and you'll see now that our working yarn is over here. And you're going to go back and knit off all of these as 1 stitch all the way across. Okay. Push them all down a little bit. And now what you're going to basically do is just keep doing that over and over. Sometimes you have to sort out your yarn, but if you keep it roughly to the front and sort of let it drape between separate pegs like I'm doing here, you can usually keep on track of it. Just take your time and be patient with it. If your wool gets a bit tangled up, just take some time to just untangle it again. But it's one of those things that if you've never worked with like more than 1 ball of yarn at a time, can be a little bit tricky. So just take your time and work slowly, and remember what I said, that whatever colour is at the top here, you need to work the opposite colour, okay? So I will do a few rows and then I will come back and show you how it looks. Okay, so I said I'd be back when I had done a few rows, and I have, and you can see it's just starting to change from the pink to the purple, and pretty soon I'm going to have this blue in, which will look really eye-catching. I'm not sure how much of this, how long I'm going to be able to make my scarf, because this is literally all I have of this particular yarn. So it'll be as long as it is. But you can make your scarf as long as you want it to be. And if I move in here, you can see that stitch pattern we were doing gives very, very clear in distinct stripes, and obviously the crochet cast on at the beginning gives a nice neat bottom, so we don't have to do anything weird to that to try and tighten up loose loops or anything. And the other thing is that this stitch, despite being basically an all of a knit stitch, it doesn't curl, which is great. So we didn't need to put a ribbing or anything on the end. You end up with these sort of alternating coloured edges, which is nice. And even the back of this actually looks quite interesting. So yeah, that's what it looks like after you've, if you do the pattern correctly, this is what it looks like after a few rows. And you're just going to keep doing the same thing over and over and over until you've got this thing as long as you want it to be. I will just work until I run out of yarn. I don't know how long that's going to end up being at this point. But just keep going until it's as long as you want, and then we will be back and I will show you how to cast off, and that will be our scarf finished. Okay, so I finished everything I'm going to knit, and I actually do have a reasonable amount of this left, but I'm not going to make it any longer than this. I basically went from the sort of pinky red all the way through purple, blue, back to purple, and then back to the pinky red at the end. So I'm going to now finish this off. I'm going to untangle it first. So when you come to finish your scarf, you want to check to see whatever colour it was that you started with, and I started with the black, so you're going to finish with the black. So I've just done my pinky purpley row here, and obviously you've got all of these kind of extra loops, but it's not difficult. What we're going to do first is we're just going to knit one row where we're literally just going to knit all of these off. So we're going to go round and just knit all of these loops, taking all of the extra ones off as one loop, like this, all the way around the loom until you get to the end. I'll get to the end and then I'll come back. Okay, now we're ready to cast off properly. So at the moment I've still got this extra pink here, but you don't need to worry about that for the moment. What we're going to do is we're just going to cut this off. So let me grab some scissors. So we're going to just cut this off. We can leave a little bit of a tail to weave this in. Untangle it all. And then what you can actually do is just give this a little tug. Make sure you can actually see. And just double knot this off. And then you can weave that in afterwards. So what you're left with now is just the black, or whatever colour you ended with. And that's the colour that we're going to use to cast off. Also, by the way, guys, before I go on any further, if you want the written pattern for this, this will be on my website in the members section. And also, just a quick heads up, if you actually see my videos or anything anywhere else other than YouTube or my website, that's not me, that's not authorised, okay? Just so you're aware of that. I only post stuff on YouTube or my website. Right, so we're going to cast off. So we're going to do a usual cast off, which is just a chain cast off really. You must keep this very loose. So what we're going to do is knit the first, skip the first peg as usual, knit the second one very loosely, okay. Then we're going to take this loop and carry it back to this peg here. Remember, don't tighten this up, just hold it gently just to stop it slipping off the peg. Knit over. Then we're going to take this one and move it over. Okay, and that's your first one done. So let's do the next one. Knit this off very loosely. Carry this back. Put it here. You can tighten it slightly, just not too much, otherwise you'll ruck the end of your scarf up. Knit this over. and carry it back and pop it there. Okay, I'm going to show you one more time. So you've got this. Remember not to tighten these up. You're going to have to be very careful that these don't slip off the pegs. So go to the next one, knit loosely off. Oops, see, like that. Knit loosely off. Take this loop, move it back here. Don't tighten it, just hold on to it. Knit that off and move it back over. And you're going to do that all the way. And when I come down to my last peg, I'll come back. Okay, so I'm down to my last 2 pegs now, and we're going to do the same thing as before. We're going to wrap this one, knit it off, carry it over here, knit this off, and then all we're going to do now is get our scissors, cut the yarn, pull this through, untangle it from the loom, and there we have it. Just tighten that up a little bit. So you've got your pink this end, and you can weave that in, and you've got the black this end, which you can also weave in, and you can play around with this and just stretch it out. And the great thing about this is it doesn't curl up too much. The sides do curl up slightly, but not too bad. And as you can see, we've got the nice alternating edges, and obviously the tail's the other end, which need to be weaved in as well. And that's it. That's your stripy scarf. So I hope you enjoyed making it, and see you again for another video soon. Bye!